Okay, Josephine, welcome back. This is our video 2 of practice interview with Josephine Palecte. How do you say your last name? Palecte?
Palikten. Oh, no, sorry. Wow.
So, okay, so where were we at? What was your last lesson? Yeah, the lesson. So what you might want to do is make sure you start with your goals or objectives. Okay, so you might want to say, class, this is our goal for, you need to make sure you start with that. And in fact, you even need to write that on the board, already. And this might be the time when you tell them about the agenda. What do you think?
Oh, okay. So like in my classroom, I'll just learn this also from Miss Merlina, Dr. McCullough.
I'm gonna get closer here.
All right. Like you might also want to apply this in your classroom. So you have to put an agenda of, you have to put in your classroom rather, you have to put it in your board, your agenda of on that day, like for that day.
It's like more of a bulleted things of the tasks.
So for every subject, you have to put it there. Say for example, I'm gonna do the bell ringer. So that's the starting activity that you have, and all these activities that you have on that class or in that day. And then it also helps that you put it on the board because the students can see it, and it also helps that you let the students read it so that they really know and understand that's what you're gonna do and that's what they're expected to do during that day. So like if I'm done with that, I just erase it or crush it out, and then they'll see that we're done with it. So they need to see that we've accomplished that certain thing. So that also really helps to put the agenda in the class, and you have to explain the agenda. It's up to you if you might want to probably do it before the objective or after the objective, as long as you do it before the class starts.
You just kind of it's kind of providing the students safety because they know where you're going with your lesson, and that there's no mystery, that they really know that once you're done with this task, you're going to be doing this next task and so on. So it's always good, especially for your kids that are, you have kids in the classroom that really would like to know that, your especially your autistic kids or whatever, your really smart kids, they really want to know, that these are the things that's going to happen within this 45 minutes or an hour, wherever you have them, right? And so you will have this agenda and you have it posted, and the students will look for it at the same spot, right?
So and it's also impressive. It's also impressing to put also your objectives on the board and also include the standards. So I mean, like, it's not just for you and your students, it also helps for the administrators to see that you are really doing your job and that you are following the standards.
The Arkansas State Standards. It's really the Common Core Standards, but they don't want to call it that. You need to call it Arkansas State Standard.
It's like the milk there.
I see.
Or the Fiji.
So they really want, most schools really want you to write it down, so that they know what you're covering for the week, or they're covering for the day, whatever their rules are. Depends, right?
But well, based on experience, you will really have some students who will have this reclams. What was the English complaints about why you have a lot of things to do in the agenda, but as time passes by, you'll get used to it, and they will get used to all the things that you want to do for your class.
They'll call you a slave driver at first.
It's normal.
And I was actually called one time, and this is by an assistant superintendent working with me, a team of adults going for accreditation. Dr. McCullough, do you realize that you're like an Asian slave driver? And I said, yes, I do, and thank you very much. I think that's a compliment. That's how I handled it. But your kids are gonna try, they're really gonna try, right? But you will know how much you can cover. You might overplan at first, but then later on you kind of would know, right?
Well, I also have the same. I've also heard the same things from my students, like, Miss Incorporated, you just give a lot of things to do. Why you're the only teacher giving us a lot of things to do? So and then they'll just get used to it because that's just me. I got a lot of stuff, and then they'll just see it in my agenda. So they'll complain it whenever they get inside the classroom, but they do it. At the end of the day, they're just gonna do it.
They do it, But because you might have some teachers, some colleagues that are not giving as much. But you might want to share the teachers that you're not gonna be comparing teachers, because for one thing, we're different, and another, we are teaching different subjects. So you cannot be saying those things. But Anyway, but
The way how I answered it was that like, well, I'm just doing my job. That's it.
There you go. I'm a slave driver. Anyway, so you start with, any lesson, you should start with your, goals and objectives, and then make sure you mention that your agenda, which you're showing them what you're going to do. And then at the end, make sure that, the activities, of course, you said that collaborative activities, discussion, whatever. And then of course your bell ringer would have to be the start, right?
So like bell ringer is like the motivation for your class. So like there's bell ringer and then there's do now. So like the do now is just
Short.
do this work, do this thing
for 5 minutes or whatever.
But it's different with the bell ringer, because bell ringer could be a part of the previous lesson that you have, or a new, or for your new lesson, or connection. And it's just like around 10 minutes to do it. But the do now is really short, really short. So say for example, sometimes I do the do now, like get the Chromebook, get your paper, things like that. That's my do now. But when I bell ringer, most of the time I do the writing prompt, because I want to improve the writing skills. So I give them time, 10 minutes to do the writing, things
certain
like
prompt.
Yeah, and then I'm gonna go around the class and try to see and check their work.
Yes.
That's it.
So you're going around and always monitoring, so you know how to adjust. And you might also want to include also that if you do one activity, you wrap it up, and then you go to the next one, you're debriefing it. So for example, you're having them work in small groups, you need to bring them together, and you have to use the word debrief. You're debriefing the whole class and kind of sharing what everybody had learned in the different groups. So everybody would learn what each group might have discussed. So you want to do that. And then at the very end of your lesson, you need to make sure you have a wrap up for the whole thing. Did the students remember what did we start? Remember, you go back to your objective and say, okay, remember when we first started, this is what we're going to meet. Did we meet it? Okay, let's go check it. So you're actually going back and wrapping it up, reminding the students what they're supposed to be learning for that hour or for that period that you have them. Okay, so it's a very neat bow that you're going to do. So if you do that, you have a very good lesson, right? Okay, so moving on. So what does an effective or ideal classroom look like? So, how does it look like? If it's an effective or ideal classroom, a very good classroom, what does it look like?
So an ideal classroom should, of course, be well ventilated, so that student would be comfortable doing things in class. And another thing is a good classroom structure should be, of course, clean, not does not have a lot of things inside, because it would be too destructive for the students if there would be a lot of things inside the classroom. And it should be organized. Everything that you put inside your classroom should be organized that way. It would give a sense of students would feel comfortable staying inside the classroom. And if you would place something in class, like let's say you want to take some sayings or something inside the classroom, you should make sure that it should be readable for the students. Like it should have a bigger font, because students would love to read. That's what I learned here as well. The classroom structure in public school, wherein the principal would not allow us to place too small wordings inside the classroom. It should be big enough for the students to read.
Okay, so your answer to it is more of the physical structure of the room. That is okay, but you need to finish it with how it looks like when you're doing a lesson. Are the students engaged? What are you hearing? What are the senses? Like, are you hearing discussion, students talking?
Or do you want to hear academic noise? That's very new for them.
Academic noises where
academic noise. Or like, do you want an inclusive classroom? Do you want a safe space classroom? Don't just focus with the structure of it.
My answer would always say an ideal classroom is not a quiet classroom. because in my classroom, they are discussing, they are sharing, they are, think, pair, share. They're doing activities where they're always collaborating with each other.
Mm.
And you will hear us debriefing the information and all that. So you might want to focus, although you can include some of those physical things, that's not as important as the one that
Yeah,
happens in a
right.
classroom,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah. Like
Yeah.
it doesn't really matter to have a beautiful or whatever structure that you have. The contents really.
Yeah, it's the content. Always go with the content on what's gonna be going on. What do I hear? Think of your senses. What do I hear in your classroom? What do I see? How do I feel? So think of your 5 senses and answer it that way.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because I remember using the word academic noise, and then
Mhm.
the other teachers just so shocked because I think they have never heard it, and maybe they're just used with the students sitting inside the classroom,
Yeah.
which is
Inside voices, but they're doing discourse.
inside voices
Yeah. Use the word discourse
or
also.
indoor voices. Is
Yeah.
it inside?
Inside voices. Yeah.
Inside.
Yeah. Yeah, those are good. In my when I taught elementary, I have taught both elementary and high school. When I taught elementary, I would always, like, they're working in small groups, I would say, shh, you need to be talking to each other, but quietly, so everybody else can hear their own. But you pretend that you are like the American spies and the others are the Russian spies, and you don't want the Russians to hear what you're saying, so you have to whisper inside your small group. So I would say things like that. Of course, they were elementary, so they were just thinking that was pretty cool, and then later on we would share, and now we're back to all of us are American spies now. So I would do that, and then we'll share. So anyway, so you come up with something that is engaging, that is your just active learning are the words really that you're thinking about. Okay, but I like the physical things too, but just always finish up with the academic. Okay. All right.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. Uh-oh, they're gonna ask you about what if you have a teaching philosophy. What is it?
Oh yeah, they're gonna ask that.
Yeah.
For sure.
What's your teaching philosophy? Where'd you answer that? How do you answer it?
Oh, okay. My teaching philosophy would be a kind of class environment wherein the students would get the chance to show their skills. So it is not just only me who would deliver the concepts or the lessons in class. The students would have the freedom to express themselves inside the classroom and collaborate with one another. That way, learning would be more meaningful.
Yeah, anything that you say there is really correct, because this is what you believe, your belief about teaching.
That's yours.
You cannot be wrong on this. You just need to say, and those things that you said are correct. You want them to be engaged, you want them to be, to be active and to be learning collaboratively with each other, and maybe doing real life connections, things from the real world you bring in your classroom, things like that you can include. Okay. All right. So what was that at the bottom one? How about you? Do you know anything about PLC, or professional learning community? What do you know about it?
Can I have a brief background about that?
Well, that's why I go ahead, tell her what you think about PLC.
PLC is it's like where you meet other teachers, you meet your administrators, and then you plan or you think something that will help the school district or the school itself, like what you're gonna do, like what you're gonna improve with the class.
That's a
with the school.
school-wide PLC,
Yes.
but you also have a
Like-
class, right? TMPLC.
Team PLC, it really depends on how big the school is, I think, because we've never really had a team PLC. It's more on like school PLC and then the district PLC.
Mhm.
So like so say for example, you are in a big school, probably you'll meet with your teams and your departments, and then you plan you plan
Mhm.
for the students.
Is it somehow similar to the learning action cell that we have here
I don't know.
in the
I don't know.
We call
It
it
could be.
lab session.
It could be, but the ideal thing is that a group of professionals learning together and to impact student learning.
Mm.
So that's really what it is. So some schools are doing it where they just doing a district in a big auditorium and everybody's there and so on. And they do it like what once a week,
Ours is once a month.
once
And
a
then
month.
for school PLC, it's once a week.
Okay, once a week. But in our, and some of them that are really doing well, they have it every day. Okay, some of them would have a period, small period there where they meet with their team and talk about things, you know, about problems. How are you doing this? How are we solving this or
Yeah,
whatever?
improvements.
Yeah. And so one school that I went to, that's one of the best in the state, we had a weekly PLC every Wednesday. And so what we did was, and I was leading it at first because I was the administrator, but then later on, I handed it to the teachers. I kind of modeled it, and then later on let the teachers handle it. I had to model it. But anyway, but the goal was I was kind of teaching them, for example, some strategy. Like I noticed during my classroom observation, I noticed that they needed some activities about how to do active learning instead of just sit and get. I wanted some active things going on. So I would show them a video of a strategy that you might be able to do in your classroom. And then I would like do a graphic organizer to go with it. And then that way that graphic organizer can be used in any lesson that they have. And then I challenged the teachers to use the graphic organizer in their own lesson. And then later on, they would share, this is how I used it last week in my lesson, and so on. And so that it's always evolving. It's all, you're always learning, but it's just being a professional learning community, PLC, learning together. And it's all about kids. So you always, right? You always need to go something about, it's all about kids. It's all about student learning. How do we impact student learning as a team? Okay. So if they ask you that, that's a good one there. Right? Okay. So where are we now? Okay, 10. Okay. 10. Why do you want to teach in Arkansas? I think you did mention that already. Seeing a new place, opportunities, whatever. And what do you know about Arkansas? Some of them might say that, so you need to make sure you research something about Arkansas. I do have some stuff here. You might want to know those.
Natural state.
Yeah. What do you know about the use of technology in your classroom? So you're going to be asking that, like Google Classroom. They'll ask you about what do you know about that, and then any of the Google suites, from Google Docs to Google Sheet and all that, Google Form. So you mentioned those things because those are things that we're using here, right? What other things do they need to put in technology?
Kahoot,
Kahoot,
Quiz. It really depends.
Yeah, any of those apps that you use, make sure you mention that. Okay.
Any techie stuff.
Oh, they'll always ask you, do you have any questions for us?
Yeah.
Okay.
Based on experience, do not ask them right away like how much will your pay be, or like how do I say this? Like don't ask. I don't want to say it. I'm trying to find the right words. So say for example, will I be getting the working visa right away?
Yes, do not be asking
That's
those
really a
things.
red flag.
Yeah, because if they hire you, that's gonna come in place next.
Yeah,
Okay.
they already thinking about that.
Yeah, and if they worry about visa processing because they've never hired any international teachers, make sure you tell them that the Philippine license has reciprocity in Arkansas. You will get a provisional license, and then you will take the TOEFL, which is your English proficiency test. When you pass it, then you get your initial license.
That's the provisional.
Okay, so you get the provisional, you get the license, but you have 2 years to make it into initial. Okay, so just assure them that then the license is going to be good for both places. Okay, and then TOEFL is TOEFL. What is that? Teaching of English as a foreign language. So TOEFL, the TOEFL test, you have to have a 76 on, and it's on reading, writing, spelling.
No,
reading, writing.
LSRW. I think you know that.
Okay,
LSRW.
Yeah, listening, yeah, speaking, writing, and reading. So reading is the hardest on that one. But anyway, so just assure them of that. And the visa processing, you always get help. You can mention my name. So Dr. McCullough in the state would help us, okay, and would help guide us. And so these are some resources that you might want to check out. And then that's all. I think you should do well on this interview, right? Because your answer is very meaty, and you seem to know what you're doing, and just make sure that you use examples like you did earlier.
Yeah.
Right? If you use examples, that's really powerful. Okay, those are really strong answers. So we want to wish you the best on this,
Right.
and do let us know what happens. Okay, because this is a
Yes,
good
yes.
practice for you. Okay, all right. Remember the questions, because I'm going to ask you what questions were asked. Right?
Yeah, try to remember.
Yes, yes, yes,
Yeah.
Doc.
Yeah, some people would write them down. But anyway, so your assignment tonight before you go is you need to do a 2 to 3 minutes, like you said, like how smooth you describe yourself, on tell us about yourself, and then you need to come up with a teaching philosophy that's gonna be also smooth. I think those two things, right?
Like you have to, you should really have to think about your teaching philosophy.
You can Google
So,
some
so
things.
that, yeah, you can, I just Googled mine and then
Yeah.
try to expound it.
Yeah, you put teaching philosophy in quotation mark, and you put sample or example, and then you can see some other people, and then of course you don't just copy it. You need to look for words that are applying to
apply to
you,
yourself.
and you put it together.
Mm.
Okay. All right. So I wish you the best. Do you feel like you learned something from this session?
Yes, yes, Doc. Of course,
Yeah?
Doc.
What
Yes, I
what
do.
was new to you?
The when you told me about the classroom structure without Doc, when I've only mentioned the physical structure of the classroom, so I missed on that. Something that I missed on that point was really the what's really happening inside the classroom. You need to share that one. That is only the physical structure of the classroom. So
Mhm. And
I missed that
yeah,
point.
that's a very common mistake, by the way. But really,
Yes,
always,
yes, yes.
it's always there when they ask you a question, it's always about kids. So always go back to, okay, this is all about kids, right?
Mm.
Yeah.
It's not really all about you.
It's
the
not about you. Yeah.
kids.
And be humble. I think you look very humble, and you look very knowledgeable, and you, right?
Mm.
Yeah. So if you act like a know-it-all, like, oh, I'm just getting it, you
They
can
wouldn't,
teach, yeah.
they wouldn't get you.
You would not. Yeah. Do just like, do you, okay? You're fine. And just make sure that you dress your Sunday best. Okay, what you would have
Yes,
worn in
yes.
church.
Also, try to find a better place to.
Better place. Make sure you have a very quiet place. Like we were hearing
Yes,
music
yes.
in the background and so on. So make sure that you have in a very quiet place with a good background. Okay. All
Yes,
right.
yes,
So
Doc.
good luck. Good luck. You
Good
can do this.
luck.
You can do
Thank you so much, Doc
No
and
problem.
Maria. Thank you.
Okay. Bye. You can do
Bye,
this.
Doc.
You can
Bye,
do this.
Maria.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.
You.
Okay. Bye.